What's up, folks? I'm gonna cut right to the chase with this one. We've got a community here, almost 2,000 people strong, complete insanity to me. Speaking of that, there's actually a lot of new faces here. To everyone that's new, you've subscribed here within the last 2 to 3 months. Hi, my name's Justin. I make videos here on the internet. Thank you so much for subscribing. If there's anything I can do for you, leave a comment down below. I just wanted to introduce myself. I want to use this opportunity with all of you here to be a force of good for the industry, and I thought what better way to do that, to get all of us under one roof, to unite under one project, than a digital shared recipe book. This project has been in my head for a while. Take it all the way back to when I was a sous chef in Norway. I got really sick of all the chef de parties coming up to me and asking, where do you have that recipe for pistachio genoise? Or like, I can't read your handwriting. Is this 100 grams or 700 grams? I was also really frustrated with the fact that most recipe books are written chronologically, right? Like, you get a new recipe, you flip the page, you write a new recipe down. So it's not where the recipe is, it's when you got the recipe that determines where you find it in your book. And people are relying on you having that physical book on your possession. Maybe you left it at home because you were copying a recipe down from a cookbook and you don't have it, so where do you get the recipe from now? And once you finally have that book, you can't search through it easily. You gotta just flip the page over and over and over again until you're looking for that one page. No one else can do it for you. So I basically created an entire Google Drive system around recipes. I'm obviously no longer at that restaurant anymore, so I want to open up that platform and create a collaborative space for us to come together and create a home for our recipes. So here's what I'm thinking. I've created a Google Drive folder called Recipe HQ. Everyone who's on my email list, everyone who's supporting me on Patreon has access to that right now. I sent you a link. You can play around with it right now. It's live at this very moment. If you want an invite, if you want to be involved with this, go ahead and sign up to my email newsletter at justinkhanna.com/newsletter. That will auto send you a link with access to this Google Drive folder. I'm doing my best to keep this as easy and simple and bulletproof as possible. I absolutely have too many balls in the air right now to constantly be updating this, so I brought on Kalaya and Joshua to be admins for this entire project. They will work remotely, help me organize the recipes, make sure there's no typos, add keywords, organize the recipes into respective folders. If you were so kind as to answer the call when I put out the heads up on Instagram that I needed help with the Google Drive project, thank you. It's nothing against you if I didn't say yes to your help. I picked these two because they were super keen on showing me their work on Google Drive right away, and I just respect the hustle. If you are someone that told me that you wanted to help me with this project, the best thing you can do now is start to catalog your recipes in the Drive. If this project starts to get out of control, I'm gonna need to ask for more help, and if you're someone who's consistently promoting well-formatted, tight, tested recipes, I'm gonna ask you first. So back to the system. How does the whole Google Drive thing work? Like I said, it's pretty simple. I intentionally removed all of the bells and whistles. I could have made this super feature-rich, really fancy, but I wanted to strip all of that away so it makes it really easy for you as a creator to submit a recipe and really easy for you as a user to discover new recipes. And also not make it a huge headache for me. This is not a recipe system for one restaurant, it is an entire global database. So I'm essentially intentionally handicapping it so it's easier to manage and doesn't get out of control. Now let's build one of these recipes together. Go ahead and click the link right below this video. It's gonna take you to a Google form. There you can put in your email. Underneath that, there's a downloadable Google Doc file. This is named Make a Copy of Me, so you don't overwrite the original file on your Google Drive. So this is exactly what we're gonna do. Left click, if you're on mobile, hit those triple dots, scroll down, make a copy, boom. So now we're gonna rename it. I have this recipe here for an oat tuile, so that's exactly what we're gonna call it, oat tuile. That makes sure that Google names the file after the recipe that you're inputting, but on the first line of the actual recipe document, we're also gonna change that. Where it says recipe named here in asterisk, we're gonna change that to say oat tuile. Perfect. Next line down, it says yield, and I know this is already a trap, right? Because if for one of my dinners, this oat tuile gives me 45 tasting menu portions, maybe a restaurant that serves this oat tuile for their cheese course might only get 10 portions of it, you know what I mean? So just do your best. I try to make sure that I include volume measurements instead of portions. So I'll put here like 4 silpats spread thin, and that's a good measure, right? Because if you need 10 silpats of stuff, you can say, oh, okay, I need to do 2.5 times recipe. Next up, there's 3 columns. One says amount, one says unit, and one says ingredient. ingredient. This was inspired by a pared down version of Modernist Cuisine's recipe format. I haven't included percentages, and I've made it so that ideally you don't include volume measurements. Everything should be able to be weighed. And hopefully you notice that the ingredient box is bigger than the other two boxes. That's so you can include any notes about the ingredients that are included so that you don't have to put it down in the method section. So for example, if you're saying butter, say unsalted butter, or if you're saying onions and they need to be chopped, just say onions, comma, chopped. Speak of the devil, it's that method section. I have the first step as tell me about step 1. You need to keep in mind that someone from across the world is reading this recipe. They've never been in your restaurant before, they've never worked with you before, and you need to give them a primer about how to do this recipe effectively. Treat them like they're about to take over your station, set them up for success. Tell them every single thing you've learned from making that recipe. And I know this next point is gonna seem kind of basic, but I feel like I need to remind you, if you discover someone else's recipe, before you start it, read through the entire recipe. It's kind of like if you're gonna go on a road trip in a car and every single time you have to make a turn, you're gonna have to get out and call for directions. You don't have to memorize all the steps, you just have to kind of know where you're going. So next up, I'll go ahead and line out all of the steps for this oat tuile recipe. Now I want you to notice, I didn't go in and format everything funny. I made it as simple as possible for you folks to input this information. So you delete the text from step 1, press enter, 2 already shows up and it's ready to go for you. Press enter, you do step 3. Also, with each of these steps, I thought to myself, what can possibly go wrong with this step? What have I had problems with in the past with this recipe? So you can see in step 5, I made sure to specify that the fan should be on low if your oven has a fan, because I've had it happen before where you come back to your oven and the fan is on high and your silpats look like you just hung your laundry up all over the oven. Now sometimes you have little tweaks, little tips with recipes that you want to share, stuff that you've learned along the way, so I've included like a small note section here. So you can put, like for this example, if the oat mixture gets too stiff, make sure you put it back on the heat so that it will kind of, the starch will melt a little bit, and then you can go back to spreading your oat tuiles. Basically, the good way to think about it is, what would you have liked to have known the first time that you did this recipe? Put that in your recipe. Down here in the footer section, I've got a little bit of information that you can share about yourself, your name, your social media handle. I would love for everybody to shout each other out when you're using other people's recipes. I'm personally excited to see you folks use the recipes that I'm submitting, and then I'm also excited to get some inspiration from the ones that you guys are putting on there. It's kind of cool to put the date down. I know it seems kind of silly right now, but it's dope to come back in 2 years and be like, whoa, that was from 2018. Back to giving credit where credit is due. If this is coming from a restaurant or a chef that you worked for, please put them down in the inspired by section. One, it's always nice to see where the inspiration trail goes, but it's also nice to make sure that you're not plagiarizing or spreading ideas as your own. None of us are gonna get rich off these recipes. I would just really like for you to get some inspiration out of a restaurant that's not your own. Speaking of restaurants, if your restaurant has a clause in the contract that you signed that says that you cannot share the recipes from that restaurant, do not submit them to the drive. It's not okay to do that. You're gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble, and then I'm gonna point fingers right back at you because I can point to this video that says don't do that. It's okay to submit recipes from cookbooks or recipes that you've even created yourself, but if your restaurant has proprietary recipes, do not put them into this drive without first consulting the person that has control of those recipes. Next up, there's a section called keywords. I use Google Drive specifically because of its search ability, and you should also piggyback off of that. You have the ability in this section to include any information that someone would probably like to find if they search something. So for example, this oat tuile recipe is gluten-free, so I'll include gluten-free in the keywords down here. There's no need to put ingredients. You have that already up in your recipe box. This isn't like Instagram. You don't say hashtag oats, hashtag sour cream, hashtag salt. All that stuff is already clearly searchable, but maybe there's stuff like cracker or cheese course or pastry. Obviously, do your research with all of these keywords per recipe. The admins and I will make sure that we try to do our best with all of these to make sure that none of the keywords slip through, but I just don't want you to get mad if someone put vegan as a keyword in their thing, but there's butter in the recipe. You're ultimately responsible for all the food that you cook with these recipes, but I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm excited that you folks have a place to create now as well. A lot of my content is so focused on me being in front of the camera, or me editing, or me speaking. It's just nice that you folks can do the creating now, and you folks can make your voice heard. Does that make sense? And uploading some of the recipes you already have is the first step to that process. I also forgot there is a photos section down below as well. So if you have any photos of the recipe, you creating it, if you're inputting the recipe and you're actually making it while you're inputting it into the drive, take some photos, put them down low so people can see what the process looks like. It's also really cool if you add some finished plate up dishes where you use that recipe in the finished dish. So you've got your recipe input, all the information is there, perfect. You're gonna now head back over to that Google form where you got the recipe template download from. There's a section where you can upload doc files. It is super important that you have your doc file named. If it's not named, we aren't gonna look at it, so just keep that in mind. So once it is submitted, either myself or one of the admins is gonna take a look at it, make sure there's no typing or formatting or plagiarism errors. We'll take that document, download it as a PDF, and then organize it in folders in the drive. And then you're able to search it and discover new recipes. It's gonna be about a week turnaround time between you submitting a recipe and then it getting organized into a folder in the recipe HQ. I'm kind of treating this entire project like a shared kitchen. If we leave it better than the way that we found it, it's gonna be a better environment for everyone. If you're in there constantly spamming or altering people's recipes or doing shady stuff, Google makes it really easy for me to see the activity of like, oh, John's in here being an asshole, boom, I can ban you from the group. It's really, really easy to do that, and it's a very strict one strike, you're out policy with all this stuff. I don't have the time to be messing around with problem users. If you're not gonna contribute in a positive way, I don't want you in the group. It's plain and simple. I'm super proud of everyone here. I know you folks are the best, so I'm not gonna really worry about problems like that too much. I trust you, fam. I hope that you folks have gotten an email about this and you're able to play around with it as soon as possible. If you want access to the folder, go ahead and make sure you're signed up to my email list. That will directly send you a link where you can get access to the recipe HQ. I will be personally uploading all of my recipes in the coming weeks, and I hope you folks do as well. Hopefully it's a fun project for your day off, and then when it comes time for you to create a new dish, you have this vast recipe database to search through. Be prepared for us to change some features, maybe streamline the process a little bit. It's gonna change. I think that how this video sounds in 3 months is gonna be different than what it looks like when you're watching this. So thanks in advance for your patience. Also, thank you for your attention. My name's Justin Khanna. Have a good one.